Please, I will just call to come to the floor the various speakers who are supposed to participate to the debate. Must be 5 of them. One, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One list. I'm Nicolas Arpagian. I'm in charge of strategy at Orange Cyberdefense, and I just will be timekeeper and trying to order the debates again around the question, which is a very broad topic that organizers ask us to talk about: research, enterprises, and innovation in 60 minutes. So the best way, we decided to put some order in that very large on that very large question, and then I asked each of the speakers just to have 5 minutes talk. Then to assure that we will be able to exchange and to have questions, debate and remarks from the floor and from the audience, just to try to have more exchanges on that question of innovation and the relationship between academic world and enterprises. So I will just give them the floor for 5 minutes. And in these 5 minutes, we said 1 minute to present yourself, the entity you are working or representing today, and 4 minutes just to deliver the key messages about that very large question. Maybe we will not use a protocol. Diplomatic process, then we'll just work by online in the physical world, but online, just to be to have the different speaker. First of all, the first one is just Philippe Wolf, who is after a career in computing system, and until recently he was working at a French national agency, the ANSSI, in Paris, and is now project manager at Systèmes, a technological research institute. Philippe, you start just for these 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I will shortly explain who we are, what we are doing, and I will come back very shortly on this privacy subject, which is a big subject, a European subject. So, Nicolas said it, Systèmes is one of 8 institutes in France which were built recently to enhance the country's attractiveness. Our goal is very simple, is to transfer academic research to our industrial partners. That's the rule of an IRT. An IRT is a Fondation de Coopération Scientifique. It's not, it has what characterizes an IRT is that we conduct research in an interdisciplinary way. I will explain it when I will explain what we are doing. And we work on 2 fundamental aspects. The first one is we work with some industrial partners in what we call a co-localization of talents. We bring together research people to work together. That's the first fundamental aspect. The second one is we try to build platforms. And I will explain what is a platform in Systèmes. The platform is built to work on big systems, future systems, together with these skilled people on real and future systems. I manage a project, the name is EIC, Environment for Cybersecurity, Interoperability and Integration. It's under a program which is called Internet of Trust. Big problem, big project. What are we building? We build a platform. The name is Chess, like the play game. It's an experimental and technical cybersecurity platform. We have a stand. You can, we will, if you want to know more about the Chess platform, you can come visit us. We are working on future systems in 4 fields. The first one is smart grids. If you come on the stand, we have a little movie who explains what we are doing on smart grids. That's a job we have done last year. Next year we will work on the factory of the future. That's the second subject. The third subject is connected and autonomous transport. We have built a specific project on this field, which is a complicated field, and we are working also on the future of Internet of Things. That's very simple. So if you come visit us, I will explain what is a platform, what we are doing on this platform. Just some words about privacy. I was very happy to have this presentation on privacy, because you know that we will have a new European directive called Protection of Personal Data. It was built in May of this year, and the countries have 2 years. I think the deadline is the 6th of May of 2018 to transpose the directive in the local law. It will be, I think, very easy in France. We have a long tradition of privacy. Just a word on privacy. I have wrote a paper which is online, you can read it, on this subject of privacy. If you hear at Vincerf is the Google Internet evangelist, he said, privacy may actually be an anomaly. So we have these big problems. There is a brilliant article of 2004 which is entitled, The Two Western Cultures of Privacy, Dignity, that's Europe, versus Liberty, that's the United States. British people also. It was written by James Whitman, which is a US lawyer, and he calls it a transatlantic clash, big problem. I worked on the European criteria in the last century, young years ago, and the initiative of privacy security functions came from a German scientist, which was Dr. Andreas Fitzmann. And he died in 2010, and he introduced in the common criteria, which are the Bible of cybersecurity now, for privacy function, anonymity, pseudonymity, unlinkability, and unobservability. That's the 4 functions of privacy. But there is a huge problem. If you look at all the products which were common criteria certified, there are more than 2,000 products. No one, I think no one, I looked at all these products, no one integrates some of these 4 privacy functions. So you see there is a big job to build this. And I have some questions. Maybe we can discuss about this question. Is there an existing market for this privacy function? Is there an economic model beyond publicity to finance all the future services, Internet of Objects services? And can we build confident solutions with proprietary software? Just a last word on privacy matters. If you come on our stand, you will see a demonstration of what we call homomorphic cryptography, and you will see that it's not the final answer of this privacy function, but it's something we explore with other subjects. For me.
Thank you. I think we'll have the part of the debate to know more about the partnership and the fact between research and private sector. After you, it's turn. Jean-Pierre Quémard was a long career in industry and now is actually president of the Digital Trust Alliance.
Yeah, thank you, Nicolas. I'm very glad to be here to participate to this.
Closer.
To shake.
Yeah, closer.
Closer. Okay. To participate to this debate, I'm very happy to discuss also with academic bodies. As said by Nicolas, I'm chairman of a Digital Alliance for Confidence, which is Alliance de la Confiance Numérique in France, which is in fact an industrial organization mostly from French companies and dealing with confidence and cybersecurity. We are delivering security solutions. We are also member of the industrial organization for security, which is COFIS in France. One point which is important first is to stress the point that in this domain, in digital confidence, cybersecurity, there is about 700 to 900 companies in France. So there is a lot. So from my point of view, the necessity not to create companies and companies. I think we have to structure the domain, which is a real concern. And one thing which is very important is to establish the link from academic bodies to industry. This is something very important. And by the way, Inria is part of ACN, which is good as a CEA leti in France, and it's good to have this kind of link, and not only from downstream point of view, from innovation ideas to the product, but also from the market to the innovation, which is something important. And I would like to give you 4 very simple examples. The first domain is a standardization domain. This is a domain where, honestly, there is very few academic people involved in standardization. And for me, it's a pity, because standardization is a way, of course, to provide interoperability, reusability, but also is a way to propose standard, to propose solution, to protect your IP as well. So this is something very, very important, and in particular, jumping on the point of Philippe, in privacy, there is a lot of things which is done in ISO domain, working in management system, in privacy, impact assessment, in PII, and so on. This is something important, and we need to participate, and it's very clear. The debate raised by Philippe is very clear. In ISO, you have the Anglo-Saxon people, you have the European, and you have the Asian people. That's clear, and we fight in this domain. Second domain, which is important, it has been raised by ANSI, it is the domain of evaluation, certification, qualification. It's something where we have to provide new ideas. For example, to be able to provide automated tools to make the analysis, because one of the problems raised in certification is the cost of the evaluation. It's very heavy, it's very expensive, and so if you have new tools, new equipment, it's something which is interesting. Third topic is a very important topic as well, is the concept of security by design and privacy by design. This is something which is important. We are moving to a world where we need more security and more privacy at the same time. It's not a competition between privacy and security. You have to do it both. And working on new methodology, new tools is something very important from industry point of view. And last point, as an example, is we have been talking a lot about IoT, Internet of Things. This is something very important. Some people said there will be 20 billion connected equipment in 2020, so it's tomorrow. And there is high risk when you are looking to automotive, energy, healthcare. Everybody will be using this connected equipment, and there is still a lot to do. So honestly, I'm completely confident that we have to work together between academic and industry, and we have to animate this ecosystem. And I'm very glad to have this kind of meeting today. I'm expecting it's not the last one, but the very first one of a long story. Thank you.
Thank you. As a member of the industry, it's kind of Christmas list that you delivered, because that's all the topics that you want the academic world was us to invest. So that's interesting to see that yes, some needs that you expressed. Now it's time to Dr. Matthias Schunter. He is a principal investigator and chief technologist of the Intel Collaborative Research Institute for Secure Computing.
Okay, thanks a lot. So my role is actually to bridge between industry and academia. So I'm part of the research organization of Intel Labs, and I was sent sort of into Darmstadt University to work on the ground with academics to see what they are doing, to match it to actual industry needs, to guide them a little bit, and to make sure that the basic research that is happening all over the place is actually translated in ideas that make a difference to real users, real citizens in the society. So my background is IT security. I did a PhD in security. I have an MBA. I did many years in industrial research. And so for me, the message to industry is there are really many, many great ideas happening at universities. They are sometimes a bit difficult to find, but once you're on the ground, there are so many bright new PhD students having so many good ideas in privacy, in security, and I think it's the responsibility for the companies to go in and look and talk and guide and examine, and that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. What I discovered, again, from writing a little paper, having an idea, which is usually published when it's still half-baked, there's a long way to making a product out of it. So usually if I give a scientific paper, even if it's a best paper award paper or so, to one of my colleagues in the actual production part of Intel, they say, they read the abstract, are confused, and throw it away. So usually a technology transfer, if you really want to transfer your technology into industry, you need prototypes that show it actually works, it actually scales, it works in a real scenario, it actually solves a customer problem. So most of the technology transfer time I spend is building prototypes with my team. So showing it works in this customer context, showing it works in another customer context, showing it's actually manufacturable in a reasonable effort. And we've been very happy with our collaboration with the European universities. So we have a collaboration with Darmstadt, we have a collaboration with Finland, we have a collaboration with CISPA in France, and basically interacting with those guys gave us great ideas. What is also interesting is industry can offer to academics what I would call guidance. So sometimes the idea is great, but doesn't work at all in practice. It doesn't scale. It doesn't solve the actual customer needs. So the academics I have interacted with benefited a lot from feedback from us saying, yeah, what happens if you, so for example, we had a prototype for phishing detection. It processed a URL and said phishing, no phishing. And I asked the guy, what do you do this if you get 2 billion URLs an hour? And then he basically said, that's not part of my model. And I said, okay, then we probably need to change it a little bit. And by having this dialogue, we improved the system a lot, that it can now arbitrarily scale to billions of URLs an hour. So to conclude, my two messages are, there are many, many great ideas in research and academia that industry should tap into. But from an industry point of view, it doesn't work to basically just wait for the academics to come and throw a paper over the fence. You have to engage, technically engage, assign people to these collaborations, be in the university on the ground, working with all the academics on a day-to-day basis. So whenever these collaborations are hands-off, send me your final PhD thesis, I may or may not use it. This usually doesn't work, but these close technical collaboration, engineer to PhD student, worked very well for us. Finally, some wishes, if I could place them. I would like the academics to invest a bit more in engineering, so having people to prototype stuff, maybe not PhD student, engineers on the ground who can show it to industry players as a working system beyond the paper. And the other message is I'm a bit not so convinced that this paper counting, publication focused research is the best thing for industry, where basically the only thing that matters is whether you get your next CCS paper. Whether anybody reads it or anybody cares about the paper is not so high on your priority list. Once it's CCS, which is this ACM communication, CCS, Computer and Communication Security Conference, once it's at one of these top-tier conferences, the academics are happy and the rest is left to industry. Okay.
Thank you. We have with Michael that you heard already a good example of this mix, because if he is a full professor at the computer science department of Saarland University, he is still an entrepreneur, and then he dealt with for something as 6 years. He founded a company to further develop results from basic research and transform them into we wish that to him marketable application, and the fact that he works on that question of having an idea and making business around it.
Sure. I mean, you know that I would respond, right? This is why you did it. So I will keep it somewhat short, given that you have heard me talking already for half an hour. I'll just keep it short. But believe me, I will conclude with a wish list as well, given that you started this. So. First, I think there are different measures of success. I mean, one measure is academic success. I still believe that you have If you do a very good work, you need to get it published well. But it shouldn't stop there, and I think we fully agree. I think just publishing a paper is not, in the end, what you want to do. If you have something that has the potential to really make a difference, you should push it further, and I should dare say so, we do exactly this. Not necessarily at the company, this as well, but also in CISPA, it's an integral part. Whenever we have something that we consider to be of practical relevance, we push it as far as we can. We also have the FKI on board, which is their somewhat role model to push things into at least prototypical stages that industry can more conveniently pick it up. Or in the analogy, we are more than happy to leave the ivory tower for handing it over in the next city and then we go back. Yeah? But I still believe that for really making a difference, research has to be exceptionally good. I think we should never get down to becoming programmers because other people might be better at this than we are. On the other hand, we have a chance to invent things which other people are not capable of simply by masses or quantity. And if you look back at the history of computer science, all the major changes in industry were triggered by a breakthrough in science. So the internet was TCP/IP, all these online businesses was in the end was encryption, yeah. All these things like massive user content, marketing, and so on. This was multimedia compression, visualization. All these things like cloud computing was for the first time scalable virtualization, and so on. So all these things were in the end fueled by research. So I believe we should focus on doing top-notch things, always keeping in mind that they have to transform into something that's valuable for industry. And I think this is also where I see industry. So in addition to helping us get funding, which we need by definition, I think they offer guidance, and I fully agree. I think it's good for academic researchers to understand where the actual problems are, not necessarily the problems that we believe the world has. Sometimes this is true, often it's not. Yeah? So it's good to understand where those people that indeed are confronted with consumers, customers, industry agencies, and so on, see the actual problem. My wish list, I would like to see industry investing into research without giving us shackles. So one can always say, this topic, transfer is the goal, but give them some degree of leniency, of freedom, to explore the area in a scientific way and try to decide as researchers what's the best possible target given our brain, and not have these shackles that some not necessarily companies, but some funding agencies have. We're really telling you exactly, or requesting you to tell what the outcome of the research will be in 4 years. If I knew that, I wouldn't do it. Yeah. So I think more free money with less shackles, and I'm happy to receive guidance.
Thank you. Last but not least, and just after the presentation of Jean-Louis Lanet, please don't hesitate to raise your hand if you have a question, comments, or elements to participate to the debate. Jean-Louis Lanet is a professor at the University of Limoges, and from 2014 to 2016, he joined the Inria Rennes Bretagne Atlantique to be involved into the high security labs, the LHS, exactly the same that exists in Nancy, the same kind of organization. Jean-Louis?
Okay, I am from the both sides, meaning I spent 25 years in the industry, in the aeronautical domain for SNECMA, where I spent time on computer for turbo engine regulation. At that time, my main research domain was about hard real-time and safety. Then I went 11 years at the Jamplus, now Gemalto Group, about smart card security. And then I spent, I would say, around 8 years at the university and 4 years at Inria for public researchers. So I have the both sides, the industrial and the academic point of view. And now I'm leading the LHS, the high security labs from Inria Rennes, which is very similar to the one here in Nancy, and we are working together on cybersecurity. And you will see two demos from the LHS, one about CryptoLocker, how to be efficient, how to fight efficiently ransomware, and the second one, which is a little bit negative, which is why IoT has no security for the moment. I mean, low-end IoT, that there is no security, and there can't be any security on it. So it's a very negative message that I have, nevertheless. And we hope to improve the security of even the low-end the devices. My point of view about transfer is that what we want to transfer is knowledge. Not only a pile of academic papers and a lot of codes, but knowledge. Knowledge is not only that. Knowledge is also a way that you have explored and that are dead-end solutions. So you spend time in research to do some researches on some paths that are not good, and you can't publish that. Okay, you forget it. But for the industry, it's very valuable also, because they know that this direction is not the right one. And also, if you make some experiments, the setup of the experiment, meaning all the parameters of your experiment, is very valuable. If you want to repeat the experiment, this is something also which is valuable. So when we set up the LHS in Rennes, we embed engineer from one of our founder partners, which is the DGA. So it means that we have inside our team people that knows perfectly the domain, know their problems, and expect to gain expertise and to acquire knowledge about the problem. So we work together with those engineers. And this is very important for us and for them also, because they acquire the knowledge meantime while we were working on the research. So I strongly believe in this model that has pointed Matthias just before, that the knowledge is something which is a continuous process. So you have to train and to give the information also to the industry in this way.
Thank you. Questions, remark, please don't hesitate to do some noise if I'm not looking at you at the moment, just to be sure to give you the floor. Just a question about the question of having a discussion with industry. For comparing with your experiences, do you think that it's time for academic people to deliver quite ended project with uses which are clear, or maybe they don't have the capacity to do it obviously now at the moment, but to trying to explain to industry what uses can be done of these new way of doing in the future for the company, and then the possibility of earning money in a quite mid-term period of time? Jean-Pierre, both.
Okay, I can start. From my point of view, I think what we have to create and to promote a joint team, because nobody has all the knowledge, and I think a joint team with multidisciplinary people co-located really could be a success, and everybody has to be in his role, not taking over the role of the other parties, because I think we are better in our expertise and not in trying to do something else. Anyway, I took the idea that it's important to have some prototyping skills close to the research. I am okay with that. But anyway, I think what we have to create is this kind of debate, discussion, and it cannot be formalized with a request for a proposal, with a contract. Unfortunately, I think when you are creating open innovation, it's something you have to put all the people together, and it's an exchange. It's my view anyway.
Matthias?
Yeah. So one point of Michael was the contracts. I observed that it's usually counterproductive to put shackles on academics. So contracts and IPs and patents is something at least the academics I know are not so interested in. They want to have a good idea, they want to publish it, they want to open source it, so give it away to the public that everybody can play with it. And that's also for us the easiest collaboration model, because neither we nor the academics have to keep anything confidential. They can usually discuss with all friends they like and publish with whomever they like. So this, since for us the important point is knowledge, ideas, new insights, concepts. At least for us, the actual patents and IP are not important in these collaborations.
Yeah.
And therefore, we don't put many shackles on universities. So usually in these collaborations, it's more about let's jointly explore a new space, understand it. Like the next space will probably be security of autonomous systems and driving. Sort of, I don't know a lot about it, and I pick some security researchers who know hopefully a bit more, and then we jointly look what we can do in this space. So that's the kind of collaboration we usually do.
Michael?
Sure. Well, actually full agreement. There are three, if you think about it, there are three possibilities being an academic, how you can actually have impact. The first is you have a absolutely groundbreaking idea. So if you really develop the first fully homomorphic scheme that is efficient, probably you don't need to prototype it. You would have the impact right away. Yeah. Unfortunately, this happens extremely rarely. So this is like gold mining, right? And they really mean digging for the biggest gold nugget in the world. The one person that is lucky is super lucky, right? But the other people just fail. Second option is, and there I'm fully with Matthias, we should try, whenever we have something that we believe could get widespread acceptance, we should push it further than just paper writing. We should try to put it into prototypical form. This does not mean, product. I think it's a long way from prototype to product, as we all know. But I think prototype is something that we personally have in our own capabilities of doing. And the third area, which I consider even more important, is along the line what you said. It's providing a steady stream of highly trained young people that in the end will look for job opportunities. They will, many of them want to enter industry, and industry is desperately searching for exactly these people. And having joint collaboration up front, to me, is also investment in those people that you later on want to hire. And there, as you said, shackles are not really beneficial. These people don't want to get shackled, but being praised and supported. But I think that's to a large extent the best we can do as academics as well. We train the people, maybe together with industry, maybe with us, but we train them in the end for industry, right? And there I would welcome having collaborations as well that let's say, appreciate this.
I'd like to disagree. So I think he says even if he has the first whatever crypto scheme published, he doesn't need to do anything. And my counter argument is it's also about speed. So if he writes a paper, whatever groundbreaking, it probably will sort of wither away in the papers for many years. And by building a prototype, he will get it into industry much faster. So take the RSA systems, I think published in 70-something. It took like 20 years until anybody actually used it on a wide scale. So to some extent, even if you have this groundbreaking idea, if it's actually useful, it helps building prototypes, explaining to industry why you now need this weird RSA scheme instead of some old ciphers. And the other, I have to say, the second way of technology transfer beside the prototype is really hiring the PhD student. We had cases, the PhD students finished their PhD, had a great idea, and basically offered them, do you want to now do it for real? They joined us and continued doing their PhD topic on a large scale, globally distributed and the like. So having good people who can not only who can do this out-of-the-box thinking are very important for industry. So if you hire a normal engineer, he can decompose a system into ABC, but finding that actually a function D is much better than ABC is something not all people do. And having these people who are trained during their PhD jumping out of the problem, unleashing their shackles and doing something completely different, which is much better, is something which is of very, very high value to industry. You wanted to counter?
Michael? I could disagree the disagreement, yeah. Sure. I mean, of course. I mean, just for the first part, the rest we agreed, right? But for the first part, when Craig Gentry wrote the first paper on fully morphic encryption in 2009, it lasted 1 week until an industry consortium was established comprising IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, and so on. 1 week. And they agreed on the funding. I would say 1 week of delay is acceptable. Maybe implementing it would have taken way longer.
Philippe.
Yeah, just to give a practical example, what we try to do. At the beginning of a project, we work with our industrial partners to write a framework, which is very... we have written a framework for 5 years. It's in a kind of lettre au Père Noël. We put every difficulties we find in this subject. And after, what's important is to work together in interdisciplinary discussions. That's important. IP is not so important. In Systemics, we share IP with industrial partners, but we are very open to every kind of share. I can give you 2 examples. The first one is we spoke about the blockchain. It's a buzzword of the moment. I think there is not a problem of security of blockchain. Blockchain is signature and hash functions, that's security. But for example, there is a big problem with how to patch all these objects in a secure way, and do it for example, in peer-to-peer functions. And I think in this field the blockchain can be useful. And what we do is very simple. We implement a blockchain and we try to prove that it can be transferred to our industrial partners. That's for the blockchain. Another big subject is the Security Operations Center of the future. How will the operators, human operators, be able to solve problems, cybersecurity problems? For example, you have 1 billion connected cars. How can you manage this? Is it only you have to use cyber analytics programs to do this, and you have also to use people to do it. And what we do is we build on simulated systems, future system. We build a security operations center. We ask people to come on the platform, and we try to practically solve the problems with that's a way to do this kind of transfer. If we can publish an article, it's interesting, we do it. We have done it for the homomorphic demonstration we present here, but our first goal is not to publish. I think that's a little different from academic research. We publish if it's interesting to publish, but it's not publish or die for us.
Just a small comment in addition. I think the problem we are facing is a discussion between 2 worlds. The academic world used to share their view all around the world, exchange. It's a network, a nice network of nice people. But in cybersecurity, people are not nice. And it is the problem. It is the problem. So I think we need to find a way, on one hand, to share and to exchange with academic people. That's fair, but also to protect what we are doing. And it is one of the problems we are facing. It is why I strongly believe that to have people used to work together, I'm okay with the transfer of academic people to industry and backward, by the way. Not only one way, because it's always good to have the 2 faces of the problem. And I strongly believe that the future of academic research and cybersecurity will be in this strong collaboration, being well aware of what are the danger and where are the real threats.
As academic, what are you waiting for industry? Money, cases, industrial tools and materials?
Mainly it's about use cases, or the problems, real problem from the real world. Because often it has been said, I think you said it, okay, we work on some hypothesis and say, okay, my solution is working under this hypothesis. Yes, but sometimes the hypotheses are wrong and your solution doesn't work in the real world. So that's why we are working closely with the DGA, and they say, okay, this is our problem and these are our hypotheses. Okay, and then you can work on it because you have the good situation to start your research. And then after we provide some solutions, say, yes, but there is a problem of usability of your solution. This has been pointed by Jan this morning, because it's fine to have some scientific solution that could be affordable in terms of economics, but also it has to be usable. And this is something at which we are bad. Scientific, we are sometimes bad in providing solutions that people can understand easily. So not in the team in the sense of transferring, but if you have to interfere with the user, we are very bad to say, okay, we will put a message, okay, this process ID is a danger. What would it, so we are working with sociologists to understand what is a good message about security, how people can perceive the security. And this is only in the case where we interfere with the user.
Just a small point. I think academic body are perhaps bad in MMI, but I would say also engineers as well. And one of the problems is, once again, this multidisciplinary team in order to be able to work on this domain, which is essential for the acceptance of the product or the solution.
Michael?
So, I think this multidisciplinary approach is an important point, and it's sort of incompatible with the publication sort of goals, because to some extent, at least my feeling is, since conferences are so super divided, there's a usable security conference, a so-and-so security, another security, and if you really do a truly interdisciplinary work, which sort of has a prototype, is usable, has a little bit of new technology inside, it's very hard to publish. You have to basically slice it apart to make it publishable, which I wouldn't know how to solve the problem, but it's something I observe. It's much harder to publish interdisciplinary work than just the bits and pieces. So the other point I second is about use cases. So part of my job is to find good use cases and bring them to industry, to academia. One nice use case I recently found, so I talked inside the company, they said security operations center important, this console where a couple of guys take control over the security of a company. And those guys asked me, what happens if my IT disappeared? So basically, if I only have email services by, say, Google and Outlook, Office services, Microsoft, whatever. I have 50 cloud services, my data is all over the place, and what happens to my single point of control? And I went to the academics and they said, interesting. I haven't found the answer yet, so I'm basically spreading this problem, and once somebody has an answer, I'm going to pick it up. But that's an example of transporting these industry problems back to academia.
Yeah, Michael.
So I don't have the answer, but
then I don't talk to you anymore.
give me 2 hours and we talk later. So first to second the point, I think usability is crucial, but not only for end users. So what we are doing at the CISPA as well is usability for developers, because in the end, I think that's also what industry will benefit from, because it's not that every system is secure, but people just use it badly. Many systems are programmed insecurely. So these people are not capable of doing it right because they were never trained. And some of these reasons are largely unclear. So we first have to investigate this. Getting back to your question on how our academics can benefit from industry, there is actually more to the story. For example, if you're working on, let's say, machine learning, data is valuable, extremely valuable, real-life data. If you talk, Intel technologies, which only some academics get access to, like SGX, having access to these things gives you a competitive advantage in research, because you can play with this, you can inspect it, develop solution based on this that other people just can't do. Yeah. So in addition to funding, which is clear, I would say I would particularly value early access to things, early access to new technologies, early insight into not yet disclosed things that you can still build upon and work, and of course, real-life data, right? And I think this is something that we cannot mimic in academia, because we really have to rely on these things, and that's mutually beneficial, because we can already inspect your technologies, potentially identify weaknesses and shortcomings and so on, and close the feedback loop.
Thank you. Question from the audience.
2 years ago, I had the opportunity to discuss with Matthias Schunter. He's the head of the robotics lab at Carnegie Mellon University. And they were really worried because they were losing a lot of their brains to industry who were investing heavily on robotics with very attractive salaries. And they didn't know how to stop the brain drain. And so maybe first the question is a situation like this likely to happen in the foreseeable future for the academic community on cybersecurity, like players in cybersecurity investing heavily and stealing people? And maybe I can offer some words about what they came up as a solution. And they had very strong partnerships with industry, but they were actually off campus And they came up with the solution to build joint research unit on campus, and that was their solution to keep their brains on campus, keep their benefits, and also for the industry to have access to knowledge, as Jean-Louis said. And so that would be my second question: is industry ready to help us build joint research units, but on campus and not off-site?
Question of
I can do the first.
attractivity and incomes proposed by industry.
So I'll take the first and then hand over for the second. If industry is willing to do, maybe Matthias can answer this way better than I can. So it has always been a problem to keep the best cybersecurity students in academia. So for example, getting a strong student, for example, from ETH or EPFL has always been difficult, and has become even more difficult because they all enter the Swiss banking system. Yeah. I mean, it's virtually impossible to have these people stay in academia. The system has become more complicated though, as you mentioned. For example, Google is hiring a lot of these people away, but still many people also decide intentionally to stay in academia for good reasons. I mean, you have some advantages in these companies, in particular the access to data and proprietary technology. Sure. On the other hand, you have shackles, right? I mean, you are forced to work on certain things. You cannot necessarily, think outside of the box. Sometimes you can, most often you cannot. And many people appreciate the freedom of academic research. So I think the crux that we try to do, and many others as well, have strong collaborations with these industrial partners. By means, for example, of dedicated programs, awardships, and so on, or labs, that these people can benefit, at least to a large extent, from the advantages, be it data and technology, but they still have the academic freedom to think outside of the box and pick their own topic. I think that's part one of the question. For part two, I'm handing over.
Okay, so I think what you describe as a problem is actually a success. Because from my perspective, it's one role of academia to teach good people and to transfer them to industry. So losing your good people to industry is, I think, actually a good thing. The other point is what Michael says, it depends a lot on the motivation of the people. So many people are intrinsically motivated, they want to do their research, want to do their topic, don't want to get guidance or shackles or something else. And there are many people good people who consciously stay at academia. So I probably would like to hire him, but he probably wouldn't accept an offer from us. And he basically was at IBM and came back to academia. So there are many people who consciously decide to stay in academia. So I'm not afraid if academia invests enough in fostering and growing and maintaining an area like cybersecurity, that all the people will leave and go to industry.
In complement, I fully agree with you. In complement, the problem we are facing, there is a big demand and a very low offering. So of course, people are going, are moving. And when we say they are moving to industry, even in industry, I can tell you they are jumping from one company to another one, because there is a big hunting for these people. So we are facing a lack of resources currently, and we need to improve the number of students, the number of people having we don't need only PhD, we need also engineers, we need technicians, we need a lot of people. And of course, this is a new domain, and we are behind the satisfaction of the need.
We have recruitment problems, that's as everybody. I think we have good higher education in France in IT. I think we can recruit more people. The problem is, I think, motivation. That's the biggest problem. For me, cybersecurity, you can learn cybersecurity. You have to be to learn very good IT things, very large. And cybersecurity, you can learn it after. That's my opinion. But the problem is motivation. I think in cybersecurity, when you try to have a comprehension of the problems, you need to work day and night, and that's a problem now. It's something which is difficult, more difficult now, because the techniques are not simple. Problems are very large. I hope that the program of ANSSI, which is a cyber edu, will will produce effects in the future. They have the same problems of recruitment, so it's not everybody has the problem. When I go to young people, I say if you are interested, go in IT. You will find very easily good jobs, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
Maybe one more sentence. I think some people are also altruistic. I mean, some of these topics that we are researching on are not covered by industry and presumably will not be in the next couple of years. Privacy is the best example. I mean, it's difficult, not impossible, but difficult to get industrial funding for privacy research. For security, it's easy, right? But privacy is a fundamental human right. This is why I said not now and maybe in the next few years. It might come. There might, economics perspective might arise, but at the moment it just torpedoes the prevalent model of targeted advertising.
No, there is a strong motivation with the GDPR regulation. I think there is a strong directive which has been produced to be active in 2018. It's tomorrow. So once again, we are still behind the demand. There is a big demand, and we are trying to follow. I agree, but
I would agree. I'm just saying at the moment, it's a topic that you investigate in some altruistic manner, and I think it's also a responsibility of the country, of the government. I mean, it's a fundamental human right. I think we should never reach a point where we say industry covers everything that we need as a society. They will cover their parts that in the end they make money with, which is perfectly okay. And at the moment, this is not privacy. It might turn into this. Fully understood. But I think we as a society should also encourage those people that work on those aspects that are fundamental for us, even though they are currently not monetized.
And I will say, concerning privacy domain, which is one of my favorite topics, I think France and Germany are really on the leading edge with this domain. I know, for example, my friend Kai Rannenberg, who is a German guy who is really on all the topics and pushing a lot on standards on privacy management. So I think this is something very important. I fully agree with you.
So there is also no market because when I look at my children, they are not educated on privacy. They have no problem with privacy. For the moment, I said the common criteria products, zero. There is no market for them. It's maybe in the future. I'm not sure the directive will change the things. You have to change also the people.
I agree. I think I just wanted to say that there need not necessarily be a market for something to be important.
Of course. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
If you have no market, it will be difficult to have products.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need products.
Our industries putting, when they are dealing with academia, putting some indicators. It's not a question necessarily about return on investment, but give them. Did they give to you some indicators by saying, okay, I'm investing money, I'm investing time, and doing a lot of effort. Do I need to have some elements to be in a way to be paid back in a way? Or that just we have no need to demonstrate the win for the win for the company and what the interest for them to invest on the relationship with academia. No indicators. No.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point.
It's a question. Though.
Yeah. So the honest answer is one of my bosses tried once, and he had 10 pages of indicators, publications, patents, whatever. And it basically didn't work, I think. So basically because the way from interacting with academia to making a product is long, and then whether the product is successful short-term, long-term is also taking some years. So probably you will get the answer whether a collaboration was successful probably 5 years or 10 years after you collaborated. So what we currently basically do as performance metrics is mainly the amount of ideas generated. So internally, we track what prototypes we build and what customer sort of product engagements we have. And to some extent, the number of these prototypes is a metric. The number of new product features we get out of the institute is a metric. But it's not how shall I say, super precisely defined, because all of these collaborations are different. Some collaboration may influence a standard, and no prototype. Others do product features. So you have to give the academics enough freedom to choose the topic where they are best at. And sometimes it's standard, sometimes it's a new algorithm, sometimes it's a prototype or autonomous car. So for us at least, the key performance indicators were not so useful. So we basically don't do them anymore.
I would say I think the problem we are facing in cybersecurity is not like normal commercial business. I think what we intend to do is to provide confidence from security and privacy point of view. So it's something which is very difficult to measure, unfortunately. So, and we are just at the beginning of this cybersecurity era. In some years, there will be indicators, but up to now, I think we are driven by two main points. The one which are the regulation, and we have been talking about GDPR, but you have NIS directive, you have EIDAS directive. So there is a set of directives coming from Europe, and that's fine. That's good, because Europe is leading the way on that point. And on the other hand, I think it's up to academic and industry to answer to this directive. So I think we can say the level of satisfaction of this regulation could be one of the indicators.
Michael?
Well, not much to add, actually, because you took some of the things that I wanted to say anyway. But I would like to agree with Matthias in this case. I think it's really the key indicators have a huge problem. If you carefully define them and communicate them, people try to maximize the indicators. And if you maximize the indicators, by definition, it's success. But most often, it's not. Because, well, indicator maximization does not mean that you had impact. It just means you maximize the game. Sometimes it's good to leave it open, where we all have a good gut feeling on what success is. Trying to nail it down complicates matters. But I think what went way better in the past, I mean, we also had an Intel Institute for many years in Saarbrücken, and I think having regular evaluations where you get feedback on what you did well and what you didn't well, even though it doesn't fit any catalog of criteria, I think in the end is like a peer reviewing process. And I personally like this much more because you can openly, well, tell things that nobody gets into the habit of maximizing stuff, which in the end is not beneficial for either side.
In your conclusion, you presented two ways to build confidence or trust. The first one is do it yourself, and the second one is find the traps, foreign traps. I think there is a third way. We have to, the future system, we will build them with things we do ourselves, things we buy in foreign countries where we will have traps and so on and so on. I think the solution is in architectures. We can build secure systems with unsecure objects. The best way, I agree with ANSI when they say secure by design is the best way, but it will not be the general way for all these objects, these billion of objects. And I think we can build a third way, which is architectures, to assume that we have trust, some level of trust. What was interesting is your level of trust of Tor. For example, why not a European Tor? Why not? You can say to every operator in Europe, you have to practice onion routing. Not in it must be generalized in Europe. That's a way to build confidence with unconfident products.
I mean, let's face it. So, I never wanted to say that you have to take A or B. Of course, the hybrid model is the right thing to do. But we are in a world where we, even as Europe, will not be able to produce the whole part of the hardware and software chain. It just won't work. So we always have to, that's clear. We have to rely on third-party components. I'm not claiming that I distrust all of them. I'm not claiming this, but we have to be clear that we cannot know if they do what they claim to do. I mean, especially in the absence of source code, analysis is, well, it's undecidable and it's virtually impossible in practice in many cases. So my understanding would be, at least for those cases that are really security critical, we have to be able to have some form of assurance, some form, call it trust, call it guarantee, however you want to name it, that in our environment, if we plug an unsafe component in, that the damage cannot be outrageous. Yeah. So some understanding we need to have, and I think at the moment it only works via analysis, right? Because if you get a third-party component, you have to try to somewhat understand what it does. Yeah. And at the moment, I think we cannot build everything from scratch. Yeah. We're not in the economic position to do that.
Thank you. We used to say that optimistic people invented planes and pessimistic people invented parachutes. I think that's the fact that when we have these cross-thinking between people that create, people that want to give ideas, to develop businesses, and then to have a benefit for users, to have these two meanings. I think it can be a true success. Thank you very much, each of you, for the intervention. Thanks for the members of panelists, and we then will close that session, and we start back. I give the floor to the chairman.